Hey guys, welcome back. This is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 20 of my show, which is also going to be about Episode 20. Now, since this is also going to be the final video for Season 2, so since I'm recording and uploading this final video for Season 2 today, what I might do is I might start Season 3 maybe tomorrow or something, or I'm probably gonna start Season 3 after rewatching the final episode of Season 2, which I will do tomorrow, just as a refresher. But this is the last video for Season 2, I just wanted to mention. Anyway, this is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 20 of my show, which is also about Episode 20. And Episode 20 is known as Anthology of Interest 1. Now, basically, as the name of this episode kind of states, it's actually the storyline of this entire episode just revolves around the professor's what-if machine that he invents. I just wanted to get that part out of the way before I got into the actual storyline of the actual episode. But anyway, what happens is the professor basically tells the Planet Express crew that he's invented the device that he called the Finglonger, which is basically just this rubber, big, long finger that you can use to press to turn things on from that are long distances away, and then basically that's when he turns the what if machine on, and then I should quickly mention this because there's gonna technically be 4 what if storylines in this episode. I say 4 because there's one with Bender, one with Fry, one with Leela, and then at the end after the one with Fry, there's the one with the professor. So Fry's is basically the second last of the 4 what if storylines. I just wanted to get that are told in that what if machine, and then basically I just wanted to get that part out of the way. Now, getting back into what I was stating earlier, the professor uses the device to press a button to turn his what if machine on, and then after he does that, Fry wonders what the machine is that he turned on, and then basically the professor basically tells Fry the thing that he turned on with the Finglonger was just his what if machine he invented, that basically you pose it a what if basically what the machine does is you pose it a what if question, and it produces a video depicting what likely would happen with that and stuff. And then basically so Bender basically decides to test out the what if machine first, and then basically when he tests it out, he tells the what if machine at first, as a robot living amongst humans, he never kind of fit in, so he was always secretly wondered what if he was 100 feet tall, and the machine basically poses this video what if storyline, where a gigantic version of Bender is being created by a small bunch of little Benders, and then after the giant Bender is created, it flies off after taking a smoke and stuff, and flies to Earth, and then Now this is the part that I get that it's a what if machine and everything. So the characters in the series for this episode, basically the events that'll take place for the rest of this episode that I'm talking about right now, are basically just scenarios that happen in the what if machine in the series. Oh, and since I brought up the what if machine, I'm just gonna backtrack here because I kind of forgot to mention this at the beginning of the episode. This episode is one of 2 times in the series the what if machine will be used, because there's a second anthology of interest episode, but it's labeled as part 2. But I just wanted to get that part out of the way there. But I'm not really sure in which season it is. I might have to check on Disney Plus, but I know there's a second anthology of interest episode. It's labeled as part 2. Of course, it's a different storyline than part 1, of course. So it's not like a continuation one, but it's sort of the same, just the same episode name, just given a part 2 segment. I just wanted to get that out of the way before I continued. Anyway, basically what happens is, the giant version of Bender shows up on Earth and starts causing some havoc afterward, and then the version of Fry that's in the what... Now, this is a scenario played in the what if machine, so I'm guessing the version of Fry that's shown in the what if machine for Bender's story doesn't have any friends at this point. So when Bender shows up, he decides to become his friend. And then which I really don't understand. But I'm not trying to give my opinion on it. It's just, I know it's just a what if scenario of what might happen given the question and stuff. And that's how the machine works. I'm not trying to... But I will say this, it is actually a little confusing. But anyway, after Fry meets the giant version of Bender after he's being so lonely, being the only one from his timeline in the future, he finally makes a friend, and then it does this montage with them being friends, and then basically what happens after that is then it shows a newspaper about a giant robot that's been rampaging across the city, sort of. In this case, Bender's story is sort of like one of those MonsterVerse movies storylines, like, you know, the Godzilla 2014 or Godzilla King of Monsters, or most recently Godzilla vs. Kong. Just to put that in perspective, that's what I consider this portion of the episode to be like, because it's a what if machine answer and stuff. And, you know, because Bender in this what if scenario is a giant robot. So I guess it's more like the Iron Giant kind of thing. But the Iron Giant was a peaceful robot kind of thing. But you get what I mean. Anyway, afterward, the giant version of Bender is still rampaging across New York. And then basically what happens is, basically the military stepped in to stop him, and then basically a version of Leela in Bender's what if storyline says, well, there goes the neighborhood, and then Bender destroys another building destroys another neighborhood, and then she's like, there goes another neighborhood, and they think that there's no possible way to stop the giant robot, and then the version of the professor that's in the what if machine said that he's like, not necessarily. And this is the funny thing, because he tells them that it's he's like, this is the perfect chance to test out my experimental enlarging ray. But the funny thing about it is, when he says about the enlarging ray, he says that they'll need a guinea pig. And the reason why I think the guinea pig part is funny, because they use an actual guinea pig in the episode as bait to use it on the real target. which is they basically create their own giant monster using the enlarging ray by tricking Zoidberg into eating the guinea pig. Oh my god, I'm sorry. And to quote, there's two reasons how I know that, and it was the same when I did the previous set of episodes for this, the earlier segment when I did the, for the 10 episodes for this one, when I did the one where Professor Farnsworth, ended up at the near Death Star, the reason why when Zoidberg mentioned about the joke that wasn't the joke and he said that he was talking to Dean Streptococcus, I just wanted to backtrack to that since I brought it up, because it was another great Zoidberg quote that was, and the reason why I know those two quotes, I'm just backtracking here because I want to get off topic here to mention this. I had this app on my Match 4 app on my iPad for a while before they stopped producing more levels for it, and it was a Futurama based Match 4 game. It was called Game of Drones, essentially. You know, like Game of Thrones, except with matching colored drones and stuff. And basically, there were collectibles in the game, and the collectibles that you could get in the game were basically these cards, and basically the cards were just cards that you could collect, and for completing each of the collections, you get a certain reward and stuff, and one of the collections referenced, the episode where, the segment in the episode where, you know, with Dean Streptococcus and Zoidberg mentioned, that wasn't a joke, I was talking to Dean Streptococcus. Oh my god, I'm sorry. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because this is another funny scene, because the guinea pig one is referenced in one of the collectibles in the Planet Express crew for Zoidberg, because basically, and I'm gonna just repeat what he says because it actually pertains to the actual storyline of the episode, but I just wanted to get off topic there to mention that part. Anyway, when Zoidberg sees the guinea pig in there, he takes it as an opportunity to eat it, and he's like, what's this? 2 meals in one day? So he goes in to eat the guinea pig, and that's when the trap falls on him, and then the other members of the Planet Express crew come out, and then Zoidberg thinks that they're gonna help him escape because he's like, friends, help! A guinea pig tricked me! Technically, the guinea pig didn't trick Zoidberg, they tricked him. But in this case, in this storyline, it was a good thing because they needed to create their own monster to deal with the giant robot version of Bender. But after Zoidberg becomes enlarged, he also starts destroying the city because he's like, so, who's intimidating who now, big city? And then Zoidberg basically comes upon a couple of buildings, the first being the Chase Manhattan Bank, and he's like, hello, Mr. Chase Manhattan Bank. Deny my credit card application, will you? And then basically he comes upon the famed Apollo Theater and he's like, oh, the famed Apollo Theater. Pull me off stage during open mic night, will you? And then he, as in the case with both of those buildings, he destroys them. Now I think that's all, the Apollo Theater thing is also sort of a reference to the episode that had to deal with the professor ending up in the near Death Star. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Because what Zoidberg says is, oh, it's showtime at the Apollo Theater all over again. I'm sorry, I felt I had to bring that up since the Apollo Theater was mentioned in this what if scenario segment of the episode. And then that's when the gigantic version of Bender comes along and he tells the giant Zoidberg that basically, that this is his, he called this city and stop touching his stuff. And then Zoidberg tells him to talk to the claw. And then basically, Bender tells him to put his claws on metal ass. And then basically they start fighting. And then while they're fighting, what happens is, Fry shows up where Bender is and he shows him this picture, and then Zoidberg uses that as an opportunity to attack him, and the soldiers of the Earth start attacking him as well. And then basically Fry tries to be peacemaker and say that he's not dangerous, he's just a giant misunderstood creature. And then basically while Bender is fighting the giant Zoidberg, what happens is he takes the stadium, one of the stadiums in New York, I think it might have been a baseball stadium, and he uses the water from the lake to fill it with, and then he uses his fire breath to turn the normal water into boiling water in order to defeat Zoidberg. Because he's like, "Who wants lobster bisque?" And then Zoidberg, the giant version of Zoidberg, comes over, and then basically Bender knocks him into the giant vat, which causes him to basically be cooked, steamed lobster alive, which basically kills him. And then afterwards, they start Bender and Fry start celebrating and getting along. But that's when the military and the people start attacking him for what he's done and stuff. And then that's when he stumbles back and falls on a building. And then when he opens his chest cavity, he's like, "Oh, who put this here?" And then basically Fry gets upset that everyone destroyed him. And then he says that are they satisfied? This peaceful creature is dying, and they'll never know why he came here in the first place. And then the giant version of Bender basically says that he'll tell them with his last breath. He's like, "I'll tell you with my last breath. I came here with a simple dream. A dream of killing all humans. And this is how it must end. Who's the real colossal 200-foot robot here? Not I." And then he says silently, "Not I," before going offline. And then basically Fry saying goodnight to him, and basically then the narrator says that interesting stuff. Stay tuned for more tales of interest. Sorry, I just had a bad cough there. If you saw that in the video, I completely apologize. Anyway, the next, basically, after Fry sees Bender's, what if machine, and they ask, and then, the professor asks, who else would like to give the what if machine a try? And then basically, after some prodding from both Fry, Bender, and Amy, Leela decides to use it to have that machine show her what would happen if she was a little more impulsive. And then, this is the one where I mentioned where it's sort of like a murder mystery sort of thing. Because basically what happens with the storyline of this episode is, the storyline of this portion of the episode is Leela comes in the what if scenario, comes in and shows the people that she's bought, her friends, that she's bought a new pair of boots on impulse, which are basically just like her old ones, but with just a green stripe. And then basically, the professor calls Leela in to... Oh, before I continue, I should mention this. Leela's story is sort of like a murder mystery kind of thing. Because basically what happens is, after a while, the professor in Leela's what if scenario basically, tells Leela to come into his office, and he said that he's not getting any younger, and he needs someone around to carry on his research and take care of his man-eating ant-eaters, which are basically ant-eaters, but instead of eating ants, they eat meat, which in turn also implies humans as well. And then basically what happens is, the professor basically tells her that the others won't do it because they're too level-headed, they're not impulsive enough, not like Leela. And then Leela's like, hello, new boots. And then basically, yeah, it's all boring, dullish dishwater Leela. And then after that, what happens is, he tells Leela that that's why he named her his successor. And when he dies, she'll be a very wealthy person. The day he dies, she's so unimpulsive, and she gets so frustrated by that, she kicks him into the man-eating ant-eater pit, and they eat him alive. And then he's like, oh, you killed me. And then Leela starts to wonder what she did, and then Farnsworth's like, I just told you killed me. And then basically what happens is, after that, Leela tries to act all nonchalant about killing the professor, but that's when Hermes basically sees it, because he's like, sweet Anita of Santa Anita, the professor has been eaten by giant anteaters. And then everyone gets shocked by that, and then basically Hermes says that if they ask him, it's pretty suspicious, and he tells them that he's gonna call the police. But then Zoidberg gets annoyed by that, because he's like, police, bah, nosy meddlers. It so happens that I have a degree in murderology and murderami. So he basically becomes a fake detective to discover who the murderer is. And then that's when Hermes basically calls Leela into his office to read the professor's will. And then he sees, and he's like, he sees that the will is naming Leela as the professor's sole heir. But then Leela says that doesn't mean that she killed the professor. And then basically that's when Hermes mentions, oh, before I continue, he's like, it's a video, Will. It shows you killing him. Now, I'm just gonna mention this, that video Will thing. if that does happen in the future, that would be pretty cool. But I'm just gonna mention it in the context of this episode. This is the first of 2 times that, if I'm remembering correctly, this is the first of 2 video Wills. Well, 3 if you count the... 3 if you count the one that was in the episode where Farnsworth got taken to the near-death star by the Sunset Squad robots. So technically this is the second of 3, and the last one won't appear until the final episode of the final part of the 4-part episode, Bender's Big Score. I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then, anyway, after Hermes shows Leela the video which shows her killing the professor, she decides that she has to kill him to prevent him from telling anyone. And while this is happening, Zoidberg at the same time is interrogating the man-eating anteaters. He's like, "Alright, anteater number 1, who are you protecting? Is it anteater number 2? And then the anteaters... And the anteater Zoidberg was talking to makes a noise, and he said to speak up because he couldn't hear that, and then basically that's when Leela goes to get this axe to chop Hermes up, and then Hermes is like, "What is that you're cutting off? Is that my torso?" And then he realizes that it is. Then he realizes that it is his torso because he's like, "It is my precious, precious torso!" And then Zoidberg is telling Hermes to be quiet because he's deducing things. And then after Hermes' body gets chopped up, Leela tries to put Hermes through the garbage disposal, but that's when Bender shows up, and then Bender explains that it's a shocker to hear about what happened to the professor, huh? And now Hermes is missing too. And then Bender says that it doesn't affect him, Bender, and that's when he sees, that's when he's in the disposal and he finds Hermes' arm and dreadlocks, and he's like, "Hermes' arms!" And after he sees Hermes' dreadlock in his arm, he's like, "Leela, I'm shocked. Food and garbage go in the disposal. Hair and flesh go in the trash." I think it's because in the future they kind of recycle, so it makes sense. And then Leela tries to explain that she's sorry for killing Hermes, but then she gets curious as to why Bender isn't upset, because she asks him why he's not upset about her killing Hermes, and then Bender says, and that's when Bender's like, "Not at all. There's nothing wrong with a little murder. As long as you let old Bender with his speak." And then Leela realizes that Bender is trying to blackmail him, but Bender says that blackmail is such a strong word. He prefers to use the word and I quote, extortion. And the reason why he uses his reason for using it, as he states, is because the X in extortion makes it sound cool. So basically, because of that, Leela basically goes to take a hatchet, like a small axe like device to kill Bender with, but then Bender is like, "Please, honey, I'm made of metal. You can possibly kill me with that." And he's like, whoa, what are you gonna do? But then she grabs the microwave, and he's like, whoa, what are you gonna do with that microwave? So he breaks open the microwave to use the microwave's heat to basically fry Bender's turkeys, to turn him into pieces. And then after she does that, what basically says that, "Okay, that's enough, and no more killing." And then she says that the next time if she feels like killing, just try to have a stick of gum. So she decides to figure out how to dispose of Bender's body. And then basically, what she does with disposing it is he turns his body into a go-kart for her to use. And then Amy sees it, and then she says it's hip and sexy, not like her at all. And then basically she starts getting angry and wanting to kill, but she remembers what she said about eating a stick of gum instead of killing, and then so she asks Amy if she has any gum, but then Amy mentions that she doesn't, so basically Leela goes to killing her because she doesn't have any gum to calm her down, to stop her from killing her. And then basically in the next scene, that's when it turns into a murder mystery where everyone shows up in the living room area, like the lounge area of the building. And then basically after everyone shows up, Zoidberg says that he's gathered them all here because he's figured out how to solve the crime, and he tells them that one of the people in this room is a big murderer, and this is also the portion of the episode where Scruffy comes into play. And now I'm just going to backtrack here about Scruffy. He's the character in this series that's the janitor. I just wanted to get that part out of the way. Because if you guys remember, I did that for the character bio, but I only mentioned him in the character bio because he only shows up in a couple of episodes. But anyway, getting back into what I was saying, after Zoidberg says about one of the people in the room being a murderer, everyone gets shocked except for Leela, who feigns being shocked because she knows that she's the one who killed all of them. And then after Zoidberg showed them, he tells them that the killer left one fatal clue, which is the boot print on the professor's lab coat. And then Leela takes her boots off and tries to say that she doesn't have boots to take her boots off in order to avoid suspicion. And then basically Price says, "Ew, which smells like boot feet?" And then basically what happens is Hubert says that this is preposterous, and obviously the murderer is, but that's when Leela turns off the light and kills Hubert. And then basically, well, actually, what happens is that then Zoidberg mentions that his next clue came at a certain time frame when the clock stopped, and the next clue came after that when he discovered the body of Amy's dead deceased corpse, which in this case the corpse was holding a piece of Leela's hair, and that's when Scruffy tries to figure out who killed them. So basically Leela turns the light off to kill him as well. And then Nibbler gets a little ecstatic and trying to explain to Zoidberg that Leela's the one that killed them, and then basically, so Leela turns the light off in order to kill him as well. And then basically what happens is, after that, Zoidberg mentions that it's, as he discovered all along, well actually, after the crime was unsolvable, and then that's when he gets a letter from Bender, and he reads it, and he's like, and the letter's like, "Dear Dr. Jerkberg, if you are reading this, I am already dead." And then he said that the person who killed him wasn't, that's when he realizes who killed him, but in an anticlimactic way, Fry cuts him off because he gets bored. Just as Zoidberg is about to reveal who killed him. So Fry decides to go to bed, and then Leela tells Fry to get the lights for her on his way out so she can kill Zoidberg as well. And then in the next scene, in the next morning, basically what happens is Leela's eating lobster, which is Zoidberg, and then Fry's telling her that he thinks he's figured out what's behind the cause of these mysterious deaths. And he said that two options is, was Planet Express, first of two options was Planet Express built on an old native site and stuff? Is it cursed? And then Leela said no, and then Fry says, "Is it cursed?" And then she says no, but when she says no again, that's when Fry realizes that the one that killed all them was Leela. And then Leela said that she didn't know what happened. She killed one person on info, then she had to kill another and another, and then Fry basically says that covers the first 3 killings, and then Leela basically says that in order to make sure he doesn't talk, he's gonna have to do something really impulsive. So in that case, what it is she has sex to basically lure Fry into a false sense of security and turn off the light and kill him as well. And then basically, in the next scene, what happens is basically the professor is asking them who else has a question for the what if machine, and then basically the professor mentions if Scruffy, and then the others have it, and then Fry basically makes the suggestion to want to see the one where Bender's giant again, but then after Leela says that they already saw that one, Fry's reason for wanting to see it is because he liked it and he wants to see it again. Oh my god, which is a funny thing. And that's when he comes up with his question, after he comes up with the question for the Professor the what if machine, what would happen if Fry didn't come to the future. Basically what happens is, in this segment of the episode, it basically recounts the events of how Fry got frozen in the cryogenic tube, but in this case, instead of getting frozen, he conked his head on it, and basically it's the same thing, just with a different plot added. So, anyway, and after he falls down from the chair, because of the noisemaker, he conks his head on the cryogenic tube instead of falling in it for cryo freeze, and he tells the thing that he should have kept it in the toilet. Now, I didn't mention the beginning segment of it because I sort of already mentioned it once before. If you guys remember when I did the second video about the first episode of season 1, so basically the beginning segment of this is just basically the retelling of the first little bit of the first episode, so I just wanted to skip over that part. And then after he mentions that he should have kept his noisemaker in the toilet, that's when the time rift starts opening up because of the what if machine's use. And then when Fry sees all those monsters, he asks them if one of them is Icy Wiener, and then basically Zoidberg's like, if that's his pizza, then I'm Icy whatever. And then in the next scene, what happens is basically, the version of Fry that's in the what if machine goes back to the Panucci's pizza, and he tries to tell Mr. Panucci if he believes him about the monsters, and then basically Mr. Panucci's like, There's only three real monsters, kid. Dracula, Blackula, and Son of Kong. Now quit picking your nose and knead that dough. And then that's when Stephen Hawking shows up, and then afterward, when Fry explains to him about what he saw and deciding to call it Fry on, because basically what happens is Hawking basically comes in to get his usual slice of his pizza, but after Fry mentions about that, he leaves, and then basically Mr. Panucci tells him what is he gonna do with his pizza, and he's out, and Hawking tells him to toss it in the garbage. And then after Fry leaves, Hawking and a couple of other people, in this case the creator of Dungeons and Dragons, one of the actors who played the original one of the original characters in the original Star Trek films, and Al, former Vice President Al Gore, and D Blue 32, which is basically a robot character that's obsessed with playing chess. Basically, they kidnap him to find out how to fix the temporal situation. So basically, Fry takes them because of what he saw in the hole, and then Hawking says that he calls it a Hawking hole, and then Fry gets upset about that, and then Hawking's like, who's the patent office gonna believe? And then basically, after Gary Gygax, who is the creator of Dungeons and Dragons in this episode, and Al Gore take Fry back to where the cryogenic tube is, so that they can figure out a way to allow things to happen the way they were supposed to in order to save the universe. Basically, Fry explains to them what happened, and then he said instead of falling in and getting frozen, he conked his head, and fell off the chair. But then Al Gore basically states that it's obvious what should have happened. That blow to the head should have killed him. And then basically, the one who's in the Star Trek show is saying that they should finish the job, and then they start killing him. But afterward, that's when the portal opens up again, and then they mention that something's not happening, murder's not working, and it's the only thing they're good at. And then Bender says that and then that's when they realize that. That's when Bender sees he's there again, and he's like, there he is again, and he's with nerds, and he throws his beer bottle down, and then basically that's when they figure out that Fry was supposed to get in the freezer tube to get frozen, and then after mentioning that he had to get in the tube to get frozen, we only have a few seconds before the universe is destroyed. Fry mentions that he'll do it, but he needs a weapon to defend himself off from robots when he wakes up, and then Gary gives him his mace, and then as Fry goes to where the cryogenic machine is, basically instead of going in it, he smashes one of the glass window frames in the cryogenic tube, and then basically he gets ecstatic about that, and then Al Gore's like, you fool! You foolish fool! And then Fry says, what's the worst that could happen? And then basically the universe in that segment of the What If machine is destroyed because of what Fry did. And then basically he wonders where they are, and then they mention that the leader of the group mentions that he doesn't know where they are, but he can tell them where they're not, their universe, and then the female character, just dressed as a Star Trek character, gets annoyed, and she's like, eternity with nerds, it's the Pasadena Star Trek convention all over again. And then basically Gary mentions to them, want to play Dungeons and Dragons for the next quadrillion years, and then basically they decide to play, and then afterward, this leads into the last of the what if scenarios, because basically what happens in the final what if scenario is basically the professor gets annoyed with that. He's like, that story made no sense. Stephen Hawking in a pizzeria. This thing isn't worth the gold that it's made of, and he knocks the What If machine in the trash, and he said that anyway, the Finglonger seems to be a success, and everyone is congratulating him about the Finglonger, and then it goes into the present scene where the professor sees because he's like, so that's what would have happened if I would have invented the Finglonger. And then he starts getting upset about that, and he's like, a man can dream, though. A man can dream. And that's basically where this episode stops. So if you guys like this video when I post it, just please give this video your real best you guys can. And I will see you guys when I get to season 3 for the Futurama set of videos. So until season 3, guys, just please give this video the real best you guys can. And like I always tell you with this series, fun on a bun.